All right, class. So today we're going to go over graphing quadratic functions in intercept form. Okay, so intercept form is called that because basically it's the x-intercepts of the graph. Okay, and then that's what it's going to tell you. So each form has its strengths, and then the strength for intercept form is the x-intercepts just by looking at the equation. All right, so another name for this is factored form. Okay, because when we go into factoring, what we're doing is we're converting the quadratic to intercept form. All right, so that's just kind of a seed there for something coming later down the line. All right, so here's our formula for intercept form. We got f of x, which is the same thing as y. We have a, x minus b, and x minus q. All right, so let's break this down. So if a is positive, your parabola is going to open upward. Okay, if a is negative, it's going to open downward. Okay, x-intercepts, that's what p and q are. All right, so x-intercepts are a coordinate, so we got p comma 0, right? So the number, whatever it is, any x-intercept has a 0 y value, and we have q comma 0. All right. Axis of symmetry, okay, is a line, so it's x equals. All right, so the formula for this, you take your p plus the q divided by 2. All right, so you have your x-intercepts. You're basically dividing the distance between one intercept and the other intercept, and that's exactly the middle of the quadratic or the parabola. All right, so to compute the vertex, you're going to use this formula to get the x value. So here's a coordinate. Your x coordinate will be p plus q over 2. And then your y coordinate is you'll take that number for your x and plug it into the formula, your equation, and get your y. So basically your y coordinate is your f of x. All right, and you'll see examples of what we're going to do here in just a moment. So here is our example. All right, so we got f of x equals 2x minus 3 times x minus 4, minus 7. All right, so to find the vertex, okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our axis of symmetry. Okay, so this is your starting point. All right, so let's see. Start there. Okay, so your axis of symmetry, just take this a little bigger. All right, so you take your x, right? It's going to equal. I feel like my pen is a little bit too. There you go. X is going to equal, your p plus your q over 2. Okay, which will equal. So look at your values here. Okay, we got -3 and 7. So when we take these values out, because the formula has a negative sign, we're going to have to change those numbers to be opposite. Okay, so instead of -3, this is really going to be a +3. So if you list out your numbers, this will help out tremendously. So we'll say p equals 3, q equals 7. Okay, so it has to be opposite of the formula. All right. All right, so we're going to have 3 plus 7 over 2. Add those together, 10 over 2, which is 5. So now I know the x coordinate of my vertex. That's the pq over 2 here. That's how I figure out the x coordinate. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 5 and I'm going to plug it in to that x and that x in my formula. All right, so f of 5 equals 2 times 5 minus 3 times 5 minus 7. Okay, all I do is plug it into the equation where the x is. Right? Now remember, f of x is the same thing as y. When I figure all that out, that's going to tell me my y value. All right, so we have 2 times 5 minus 3 is 2. And then 5 minus 7 is -2. Okay, and then you just keep breaking this down. 2 times 2 is 4 times -2, which is a -8. All right, so my y value here will be -8, and that's my vertex. And of course, I'll graph it here on my thing. So 5 down 8, 6, 7, 8, right about there. Okay, that is my vertex. And since my a value right here is positive, it's going to open upward. So I already know the direction my parabola is going to go. So positive 2, positive opens up. Okay, so direction, and that's what I just did there. Which direction will it open? Just put up. Okay, what are my roots? Well, P and Q are my roots, right? And just like what we have here, it's going to be P, comma 0, Q, comma 0. So what are my P and Q? 3 and 7. Again, remember, we must change those signs, all right? So my root is going to be 3, comma 0 and 7, comma 0. All right, and I'll just plot those here. So 1, 2, 3, there's one root there, it's on the x-axis, and then 7 is right there. And then I have my parabola that I can draw through here. Let me see how well I can draw it. Oh, look at that, nailed it. All right, perfect. Okay, so there is my parabola on there. As far as my chart, I mean, you can chart and go by ones, plug the x's into here. But you only need 3 points to graph a parabola, and with intercept form, it is super simple. I know my vertex, so it's 5, negative 8, that's 1 point. And then I know my roots, 3, 0, 7, 0. Done. It's good enough for a chart right there. Okay. All right, so describe the transformation. Well, first, what we got to do is put this in vertex form. And we know our vertex, which is 5, negative 8. So if I take my function, right, I'm going to have, I know my a value is a 2. Let me keep that out front. Okay. Then my vertex is hk, so hk. So h is 5. Now remember, since I'm using the equation, I got to change that sign to negative 5 squared. So this is off Mr. Moreno's lesson from Thursday. All right, and then my k is a negative 8. All right, so now it's in vertex form. All I need to do to get into vertex form is know the vertex. All right, and there we go. So transformation, so let's go by one at a time. So the 2 means that is a vertical stretch by factor of 2. Minus 5 means that it goes right 5 units. And then the negative 8 means it goes down 8 units. All right, so there we go. Okay, next example. So the reason I wanted to do this is because you'll see this quite a bit. And what this means is if I expand this out, that squared means repeat this base, multiply this base by itself that many times, in this case 2 times. So we're going to have x minus 1 times x minus 1. So now it looks like intercept form. So right here, we're in vertex. And since they're the same thing in the parentheses, that's why they put x minus 1 squared. All right, so all you got to do is just write it out twice. So basically, that's my p, here's my q. Okay, p is going to equal opposite that number 1. Q is also going to equal 1. So this is very unique because they're both the same number. All right. So to find this vertex, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so let's use the axis of symmetry. I'm going to use axis of symmetry. So let's see, we're going to have x equals p plus q over 2, which is basically 1 plus 1 over 2, which is 2 over 2, which is 1. All right, so for my vertex, I got 1 in the x coordinate. Okay, plug this 1 in here. It gets still different color. Put that 1 in there. So what is 1 minus 1? 0. What's 0 squared? 0. So there's my vertex there. Keep that the same color. All right. Yeah, I feel like I just show it real quick. So you basically have 1 minus 1 squared, which equals 1 squared. Sorry, not 1 squared. 1 minus 1 is 0. So 0 squared, which is 0. All right, so that's how we got the 0. Okay. So this is very interesting. So if I plot that vertex at 1, 0, there it is. So now what are my roots? Okay, well, I only have one root there, and it's at 1, 0. So my root is my vertex. And this is something we call a double root. Right, because they're both on top of each other. And then your graph is going to do something like this. All right. All right. All right, next one here. Word problem. But before we go to that word problem, let's look at something. Let's use one of our tools. Let's use Desmos. All right. So let's do a blank one. Okay, so when I use Desmos here, I can graph what we just did in our example. So we had y equals x minus 1, right? And we want to square it. And where we see the square is right here. There's a squared here. There we go. All right, and you see there it is at 1, 0. There's that vertex again. And I can plot that if I wanted to. 1, 0. Okay, label it. Sure. Vertex. Okay. If it's opening up, this is a minimum. So there's my vertex. I can't move around. All right, so just showing you how to use your graphing tools, and then you can see how it graphs over. Okay. So use this to help you, Desmos, where you can. All right. So remember, there's a negative in front of it, opens downward, and now your vertex will be a maximum. All right. So just keep track of that there. All right. So use Desmos as a powerful tool to help you look at these things move around. All right. So let's go back to our word problem. Common sense helps a lot with this. So here we got a football, right? So the path of a place kick football can be modeled by the function right here. So this is important. We're going to use this. Okay, where did they get this function? It's basically physics. Where x is the horizontal distance in yards and y is the corresponding height in yards. Okay, so A, how far is the football kicked? All right, so if you look at your picture, that's 0, and then where it lands, that is the yards. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the equation. All right, so let's say I have y equals negative 0.026 x times x minus 46, right? That's the equation they gave us. All right, now, let's keep in track here. P is here, Q is here, all right? And I'm going to rewrite it and kind of show you a little bit different way. All right, so look at this. If I wrote it like this, y equals negative 0.026 x plus 0 times x minus 46. All right, now is it clearer to see that there's your P, there's your Q, all right? Gosh, really bad at making zeros. There we go, all right? So whenever you have the x alone like this, okay, it's really plus 0. Nobody writes that plus 0. Nobody says 1 plus 0. Okay, it's just 1, right? The 0 doesn't do anything. There's no reason to add a 0, okay? So essentially here, we've got P equals 0, which makes sense because that's where he kicked it. If you look at the graph. And then Q, remember you're going to change the sign, is 46. Right? So essentially, if the ball lands here, this is 46 yards. All right, so it's saying how far is the ball kicked? Well, it was kicked 46 yards. So, so the distance in the x direction is 46 yards. Okay. Let's look at option B, or part B. What is a football's maximum height? So right here, what we're looking at, there's a football. This is our vertex. Okay, we got x direction, we got y. And what they want the y value. That's our height, right? They want to know this number right there. Okay, and that's going to happen right there, which is our axis of symmetry. All right, this is also a max. All right, parallel opens down, vertex is a max. All right, so this one's kind of easy to figure out. We can use our equation. So let's do that. I'll do it both ways. So P plus Q over 2, since we want to find this axis of symmetry, because they're basically what they're asking us to find the vertex. Is what they're asking. All right, so if P is 0 and Q is 46, divided by 2, we get 46 divided by 2, which is 23. Okay. And if I'm looking at my vertex, it's going to be 23, comma, we got to find that y, that's our height. But if you look at the picture, right, we start at 0 to 46. Here's a halfway point. Just divide that by 2. That's 23 yards right there. Okay, so I didn't really need to do all that calculation. So I showed you both ways there. So again, a little common sense will go far in these kind of problems. Okay, and the use of your decimals will help too. Okay, so 23 yards there. All right, but it wants to know the height. And the only way you can do that is we're going to take this 23 here. Take this 23, and we're going to plug it into the x there and the x there. Right? And that's what I'm going to do to find the y. Get negative 0.026 times 23 times 23 minus 46. All right, and then we're going to work these out. And we can put these in our calculator. All right, so just a quick calculation here. So negative 0.026 times 23 times 23 minus 46. And then I get something like 13.75. All right, you can round this, and in the homework, I asked you to round to the nearest yard. So this one, I would say, is about 14 yards. Alrighty, guys. All right, so please do your homework, please study, watch the videos first, and y'all have a great day.